So good. Well, welcome to worship at Phos Community Church today. I'm so glad to get to be here with you. And as you know, you may have encountered the Iron Man running through Oldham County. How many of you guys had a little traffic out there with the Iron Man coming through the county right now? Only one. Really, that's it? None of the rest of you hit any traffic with that? You must live on the other side. You must live on this side, because if you're on the north side of the county right now, they are getting blitzed with Iron Men people riding bikes through their roads and slowing things down and stopping some people. And we've got some people, I'm sure, watching online this morning who said, I'm not even going to try to get across the Iron Man traffic. So if you're online today, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. We have kind of an Iron Man with us today. We've got Keith Graves here today. Keith, come on up. And, give it up for Keith Graves. We, long time ago, when he lived over he used to live in the slums with us, with Julie and me over in our neighborhood, over in the slums. But he's moved on up. But that's when I first met Keith, is when we were neighbors. And Keith has been a part of Phos Community Church from the very beginning. Been our first drummer. You've been drumming for a long time now, almost 10 years. We're coming up on 10 years, man. Crazy stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Since the beginning.
And I think we asked you if you could come drum for a Sunday or two. Maybe.
Yeah. Would you be interested in drumming for our new church?
Yeah. And so Julie's a great recruiter, and she had him sign a lifetime contract, and we're really grateful. So it's all good. And so not only that, but I got to tell you a few things about Keith before we get into what I really want to talk with him about this morning. And that is that Keith is in charge of all of our mowing and all this landscaping stuff around here.
I'm sorry.
You do an amazing job. Thank you. Now, if somebody wanted to join your team, how could they do that?
Just find me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is Keith, the mower man, and we have a very sophisticated mower, so you got to know what you're doing. But if you kind of know what you're doing and you want to help, this is the man, and so we appreciate you. It's a lot of work, and I appreciate it. But in addition to that, what you may not know is that Keith did an amazing thing for us in getting all the landscape work together that's out here. But he built this retaining wall, that beautiful retaining wall that helped us kind of separate this building. Now, yeah. So I'm going to put a shameless plug in for Keith. He does that for a living. If you need a retaining wall or something like that built, here's your man. No?
I'm retired from the retaining wall.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, Alicia, what does he do? What? Oh, well, see, now that's the kind of answer I want my wife to give, whatever he wants to do. Let me hear you practice that, Julie. Say it, whatever he wants. No, she can't even say it. But anyway, so good for you, man. You were the man.
No, I just mow grass. That's it.
You're more the man than I thought you were. That's good. So when your wife says whatever you want to do, that's all good.
That's good, isn't it?
That's really good. Yeah. You are the man. So last Sunday, instead of being here with us, you were in Chicago.
Right.
And so you went to run in the Chicago Marathon.
Right.
Now, you told me there were going to be 45,000 runners.
There was.
Wow. That's crazy. It's slightly more than we have here today. But so you've got...
Yeah, I didn't know it, but it's the largest foot race in North America.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. And they divided you into 3 heats of 15,000 each.
And I was at the back.
But here's the deal, man. You ran how many miles last week?
26.2.
And you finished.
And I finished.
Man, it's so good. It's so good. So there he is. Look at this. That's pretty amazing, man. And what's the 40 stand for? Was this the 40th running of that?
40th anniversary of the Chicago Marathon.
Okay. Wow. And 45,000 people, and you finished 26.2 miles. You got one of those stickers on the back of your car now?
Not yet.
Not yet, but you're going to,
But
right?
I will.
Yeah, my favorite one is one of my fellow pastor friends. He's over at Covenant United Methodist. His name is Mike. He's a super guy. And he's got a sticker on the back of his car that says 0.0. He says, and under it says, I don't run.
Yeah.
But you got the 26.2 now coming up. So tell us about last weekend. What was it like to be out there?
It was hot, unfortunately. It was a great day for anything but running a marathon. Just to kind of tell my story, I've been running a long time. I've ran 16 half marathons, or 13.1. I always wanted to do a full one. So my wife says it was 10 years ago, but it doesn't feel like 10 years ago. I started training to do a full marathon, and this was actually my 4th try. I tried 3 previous times, but I got injured before I got to the starting line in my training. So This was my final attempt, and I told her if I didn't make it this time, I would quit. But luckily, I made it this time.
You did make it this time, but you tried. I didn't realize you'd tried that many times before. I knew you had injuries along the way and some different things that had happened.
Right.
And so I understand that somewhere in the middle of last week's race that she met you with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Correct.
What the heck's that about? I mean, you're running a race and you stop and eat a sandwich?
Well, yeah, you have to have fuel.
Did you tell her before the race, "I'm going to get in the kitchen and make me a sandwich"? Did you tell her that?
No, I took everything with me to Chicago so I could make it there and it'd be ready.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And so you made your own sandwich, but she brought it to you.
Right.
That's good. Okay. So so why did you do that?
It's part of taking in fuel during your race so you can finish. You have to stay hydrated and refueled as you run to accomplish your goal.
So where did you learn that principle, that idea?
Well, read it through books, but I also learned it the hard way.
Yeah? Tell me about that.
Several years ago when I was running a mini marathon, about 8 or 9 miles into the 13-mile race, I hit what they call the wall. And it's a point in a long race where you're running and everything's going great, and then just all of a sudden things go bad. Your legs feel like you got concrete blocks on them, and your breathing is hard and heavy and labored, and your mind basically says you're not going another 60 feet, much less another 5 or 6 miles.
So you hit the wall.
I hit the wall.
The professional term for that is bonking.
Bonking.
Yeah,
correct.
you bonked.
Yeah. So that race didn't go well. I ended up walking most of the end of that race.
So hitting the wall in that race, though, you learned something.
Yeah.
What are some things you learned about the wall?
Well, after that, I did a lot more reading and research, and learned that you have to stay hydrated, and you have to refuel, and you have to train your body to go whatever distance you're planning on going, and it's something that you have to build up to. You can't just say, I'm going to run 26 miles and go do it the next day.
Right.
So,
right. So you work toward that. You learn some things, and you pack your lunch before you run the race.
yeah.
Right? I mean, really, because the reality is you can't eat the lunch.
I mean, a lot of people don't eat a peanut butter sandwich midway through, but I did, and it's just because peanut butter's the protein, and the bread is the carbs, and jelly's the sugar, and sugar turns into fuel.
So good. But those are things you've earned. You earned that knowledge through hitting the wall in the past.
Right.
Now, you and I talked about this before, but had you not hit the wall somewhere before, what would have happened last weekend?
I would have hit the wall this weekend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they say, from what I've read, that it usually happens around mile 20, and they tell you if you when you run a marathon, pay attention to what's going on around you at mile 20, because that's where you'll see people start dropping off.
Did you see that happen?
I did a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you said you thought the crowd would eventually thin out, but it never did.
No. I thought after, especially the second half of the race, it would thin out, and there would be areas where you would just be you and maybe a couple other runners with you, but it was never that way.
Wow. And so you told me this was your first and last marathon.
That's what I said.
Yeah. You think now you've changed your mind?
I don't know, maybe. What if you'd asked me that day, I would have said, yes, I'm done.
Yeah.
But I didn't do as well as I hoped to do,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of that was because of the heat that I wasn't expecting.
Okay.
So I think I may like to try it again on a cooler race.
Okay.
But I don't know. If I don't, I'm okay with that too.
But you might. And that would be really cool to see you do it again, because you learned something last week, right?
Right.
What are a few things you learned?
It's a long race.
Okay.
You have to be patient. You just have to settle in and take it a mile at a time, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And because it was so hot, the second half of the race, I would run like to the next mile marker, and then I would basically stop and walk for 30, 45 minutes, catch my breath, and then run to the next mile marker.
So you learned how to pace yourself.
Yeah.
To make it through.
Yeah, and there's actually a book or a method that teaches you to run a marathon that way, if that's something you want to do, where you actually stop 30 seconds to a minute every mile. I didn't do that the whole race, but that gives you a rest and gives your body a rest so you can continue and finish.
So there's some science to this, and there's
Yeah.
some people that have ran it before. So let me just ask you this, and I didn't ask you this question before, so I'm putting you on the spot just a bit, but I think you'll be able to do this. If you could give us one or two life lessons out of running a marathon, what would they be?
Life lessons?
Yeah, like if
Don't
life,
do it.
just don't go there.
No, it was rewarding. I'm glad I did it. It was a bucket list thing. I wanted to do one. As far as life lessons, I don't know. I wasn't ready for that question.
That's okay. Anyway, so talk to us just for a moment about the wall, because that's where I'm going to go with the rest of the message. Let's talk about that for a second. What have you learned about the wall and how to get through the wall and that sort of thing?
Well, to avoid the wall, you just have to prepare. Prepare your body to do the distance. Stay hydrated. Carb load. You need fuel. You need energy. And carb loading and hydration, that starts a week before the actual race. You're loading up on all kinds of carbs and drinking water like a fish.
And you actually tapered off before the race, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is something that's different than it used to. We talked about this earlier. The old-timing training model, and some of you guys were part of that, and Robbie Mueller used to coach kids back in this era. It's just, you just push them as hard as you can right up to game time, and then it's just go time. But the reality is, you gotta save a little.
Yeah,
you gotta let your body catch up.
As you're training, you're building up miles each week, and you get to whatever training program you is. I never ran past 21 miles in my training, but when I got to 21, I still had 3 weeks before the race. But at that point, they want you to start backing down your mileage, to rest your body, so to speak, let it recover.
It seems reverse of what we used to do.
And it's real hard to do that because you're building and you're building and you're building and you're getting ready for this race, but you want to keep going. You want to, and it's hard to make yourself back down, and because your mind just says no, you don't want to do that.
So you had to trust your coach or that book or whatever was whatever model you were following. You had to trust that method.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. So good. Well, thanks so much for coming up here today. Helpful for us. So give it up for Keith Graves, 26.2. So good. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you and all that you do. So this marathon idea does have some lessons for us, and I think Keith would agree with me, and you can tell me, had you not failed in that earlier race, you would not have made this past one. Had you not hit the wall before, you probably couldn't have done it. Maybe not? Yeah. But hitting the wall and sometimes hitting a failure point, we think that's the end of the game, but you could hear how many times he tried to get at this, right? It wasn't his first rodeo. He tried several times. And some of you guys, listen to me right now. Some of you are trying something big in your life, and you've hit a wall. And it seems like, man, I just can't do this yet. Well, the operative word is yet. You can't do it yet. And sometimes you got to hit the wall, and you got to go at it again. And sometimes you're going to trip up on your way to the starting line even. Like Keith mentioned, he tried several times and had injuries that stopped him. And this time he finally made it, not only to the starting line, but to the finish line. And let me say something to you. Not just about your physical race, but about your spiritual race. Some of you are about to give up right now. It's too soon to quit. It's too soon to stop. You have no idea what God is about to do with you. And what sticker you're getting ready to be able to put on the back of your car. It may not be a real sticker, but at least in your heart, you're going to be able to put a sticker on your heart that says, man, I finished. I did what God called me to do. I did the next race, even though it may be difficult. So just don't stop. You see, the wall, as it turns out, is a real thing. It's not just a physical thing. And today in the Ironman, I promise you, there'll be several of the people that are trying to finish the bike route right now, who are riding through Oldham County right now, and they won't finish. They'll bonk. They'll hit the wall, and they'll be taken off in an ambulance or pulled off the course because they can't finish in time because for whatever reason their body wasn't ready to run the race that they're in. Now, it doesn't mean they couldn't come back next year and finish, but today many of them are not going to finish because they're going to bonk. They're going to hit the wall. And for some of them who haven't trained well, the wall is going to be a surprise. They're going to hit a wall, and when I was on my bike on 42 one time, and I hit the wall. And I'd never hit this physically before in my life. because I'd always been able to finish whatever I started. But I hit the wall. And the wall was like this. My legs went to jello, like there's nothing left. I didn't have enough water on the bike with me. It was really hot. And I totally ran out of everything. I had no fuel. I had no water. My legs were gone. I was still 10, 12 miles from home. And I was in trouble. And when you bonk, when you hit the wall, there's nothing left. You're just out. Luckily, there was a little store over there, and I learned a lot about reading labels and finding something with enough potassium to get something back in my body that would get me through the rest of that. But it was one of the hardest physical challenges I've ever had. When you hit the wall, it's just tough. You come to the end of you. And spiritually, friends, you're going to hit a wall sometime in your life. You're going to hit a moment in your life when it seems like you got nothing left. You're going to hit a space when there won't be anything left. So I want you to know that the wall is a real thing, and the wall is an expected thing, and the wall is something you can actually grow from so that as you get to the next races in your life, you're more ready than you were before. There's a spiritual growth model that looks like this. Let's put this diagram up on the screen. It starts with number 1 at the top, that we come to a place in life where we have this awareness that God exists and that he calls us into a relationship with himself, a life-changing awareness of God. Then we enter into a process of discipleship, of growing in our faith, and that's when you start going to Bible study, and you join a small group, and you get active in your faith, and maybe you go on some mission adventures with us here, and you move into stage 3, what we call the active life, and you're really serving God, and you're doing a lot of things for him, and you feel really good about where you are, and you think, man, this is great, and you're excited, but then, bam, you hit a wall. You're going along really well, and you hit a wall. And the wall seems like a place where there is no God, where God has gone silent, and prayers that used to get answered easily aren't being answered. It's like your prayers are hitting the roof of the building and just bouncing back down at you, and there's nothing left. But let me tell you something. The wall, what's also called the dark night of the soul, comes to nearly every follower of Christ. I can't say it's come to everybody, but it comes to nearly all of us. When we come to a place where it seems like nothing works like it did before, we bonked on our spiritual journey. We're like, I'm a long way from home, and I got nothing left, and I don't know what I'm going to do. It feels really empty and dark and alone. The wall. Some of you are at the wall right now, and it was unexpected, and you wonder if God still loves you. I've got some news I want to share with you today. God does still love you. God has a purpose for the wall. In Keith's run last weekend, I believe a big part of him knowing about eating a peanut butter sandwich when he did came from a run earlier, a shorter run, half the distance, when he did hit a wall, where he learned some things about pace and about listening to a coach and about walking sometimes when you need to, and things that are counterintuitive, that you too will learn some things at your wall. Because God is not finished with you yet. He's not done with what he wants to do with you. And for you to run the distance that's ahead, at some point, you'll come to a wall. You'll come to a place where it seems like it's all over. And that wall can come to you through the loss of a friend, through the loss of a spouse. It can come to you through a loss of a job or a transition. Your health can be challenged and bring you to a wall. Your finances may be challenged and bring you to a wall. There's a lot of different things that can happen to bring you to a wall. For some of you, it'll be a multitude of things that happen at once that bring you to a wall, to bring you to a place where it feels like you can't go anymore. You feel like you've bonked, that it's over. I promise you it's not, but you may have to wait at the wall for a while. You may have to walk for a while. You may not be able to run for a while. It may take a season. The wall forces us to go inside, forces us to look within, to see what do we really have inside, what's inside of us. And this is part of our spiritual journey. God is bringing you through the wall, and then he'll bring you back to a journey that's outward. You've gone inward, and then you begin to turn outward again to serve the world again, but it's from a different space than it was before. Before, you were just self-powered. When you were so excited and you're on adrenaline high related to your relationship with Jesus, and everything's just about serving him, and it's exuberant. Before the wall, you're just doing it on your own power. After the wall, you realize you have to have something inside to make the run. And what's inside is the Holy Spirit. It's God at work in you. and you begin to rely on him more and you less. This is the secret to getting through the wall. You shift from being self-powered to being God-powered. You shift from just what you can do on your own power to what God can do through you. So there's a gift in the wall. The shift in the gift in the wall is that you move from your power to his power. This is part of how we grow. This has been talked about by our ancient fathers. People have been part of the faith for hundreds of years ago. They wrote about the dark night of the soul, and they wrote about the wall, and they've trained us and taught us. So Keith, in many ways, those of us who are learning to follow Jesus through the wall are looking at ancient coaches. We're saying, okay, how did they do this? At what point did they eat their peanut butter sandwich? At what point did they walk? At what point? What did they do to get through their wall? What did they do to keep going after the wall? And so they went in, then they moved out, and then really the thing is, as you operate with God in the world, you begin to operate more in love. And love is the greatest thing of all. When we shift from just being powerful and trying to do things through power, we shift to loving the world into the arms of Jesus, and it makes all the difference. So I want you to know, first of all, that the wall is a predictable thing. It happens to most of us, if not all of us. You will come to a place in your life where you'll hit a wall. So for some of you, you should make notes today saying, someday I might get here. Let me remember today. For some of you, you're at the wall, and you need to really dive in and hear this. And for the others of you who are coming out of the wall, you're wondering, well, what do I do now? Now that I'm through this, now what's next? And so we'll get into this. Now, we're not without examples of the wall in Scripture. There's an amazing story in the Old Testament part of our Bible. This is the time before Jesus was here. And there's some chronicles of stories in the Bible that are pretty powerful. And I'm going back nearly to the beginning of the Bible, to this collection of writings that we have, to 1 Kings, chapter 18 and 19. Now, I want you just to kind of make a mental mark of this. This is a story that you should read this week on your own time. I'm going to give you the highlights of the story because there's simply not enough time for me to read the entire text to you. Okay? But it is a story involving kings and prophets and an ancient god known as Baal. Some people call him Baal. Today I'm just going to call him Baal. And there were actually many Baals, and there was M-A-N-Y, many of them, lots of them, that people worshipped. And we were in a time and a space. It was kind of like the Wild Wild West, and you had prophets prophesying against Baal who were on the side of God, and you had prophets of Baal who were prophesying against our God, and you had this showdown going on. And there was a king in the land who had married a lady named Jezebel. Now, if you've ever heard of Jezebel before, this is where she comes from. Okay, Jezebel had married the king. Jezebel was a worshiper of Baal. And she convinced the king that they should actually have kind of an altar to Baal inside of the palace. So the way the Scripture records this is that this angered our God. And so and Jezebel was powerful, and she was putting all of the prophets of God, the followers of God, to death. Some of you think it's challenging to follow Jesus today or to follow God today. It was more challenging then because she was ferreting out followers of God, and she was having them killed. She had so many of them killed that actually a guy named Obadiah took 100 prophets of God, divided them into 2 camps of 50, and put them in caves and fed them and gave them water and provisions and took care of them for a long time while Jezebel was on her tirade trying to kill all of the prophets of God. So this was a wild, wild west time when there was definitely people who worshiped Baal, who worshiped a pagan god, and there were some who worshiped God, but they were doing that silently and quietly because they were so afraid of Baal and of Jezebel and of what was happening in that kingdom. So there was a prophet named Elijah. Now Elijah, at this time, there were so many prophets had been killed, prophets of God. This prophet of God named Elijah thought he was the last prophet standing of God. He thought he was the last one. And in the text, from 1 Kings 17 to about 1 Kings 20, he says it over and over again, I am the last prophet of God. I'm the last one standing. But he's still bold when God calls him to be bold. So I want to take you through the story of Elijah and his wall. Okay? So here's how it goes down. Elijah's believing that he's the last prophet of God standing. But even so, God calls him and says, I want you to take on the prophets of Baal. And so Elijah challenges 450 prophets of Baal to a duel. He challenges them to a duel on a mountain called Carmel. So he calls all these prophets together at Mount Carmel. And they go up on top of the mountain, and this was the challenge. This was the showdown. This was the best Sunday afternoon game ever. This was the ultimate showdown. It's one prophet of God against 450 prophets of Baal. And here's how the rules of the game were going to be played. There were going to be two bulls that were going to be put on altars, one for the prophet of Baal and one for the prophet of God. And so Elijah set it up this way. He said, listen, you guys, all 450 of you, you get together and you pray to your God. Take your bull, put it on the altar, and you pray to your God of Baal. And then later I'll put my bull on the altar and I'll pray to my God. Whichever God consumes the sacrifice wins. This is a showdown of great proportions. Can you imagine this? The scene? 450 prophets of Baal, one prophet of God. Lots of people from the surrounding areas have gathered here at Mount Carmel. They've heard about the showdown, and boy, this is going to be something. As Elijah goes through the crowd, he's saying to them, listen, you guys are waffling. You need to pick which God you're going to serve. Are you going to serve my God or are you going to serve Baal? Which is it? And the people didn't say anything. He felt all alone. He felt like there was nobody else with him. As he climbed that mountain that day, Elijah felt very alone, except for God had called him. He steps up to the altar and puts down this challenge. And the prophets of Baal put their altar put their sacrifice on the altar. They chop up the bull, put it on the altar. And this sounds really weird, doesn't it? I mean, we don't do this kind of stuff anymore. But back in the day, this is how they worship their gods, through sacrifices. So they chop up their bull and they put it on the altar. And they begin to pray to Baal, all 450 of them. And as the day goes on, it gets to be noontime and still nothing. And so they're dancing harder and they're yelling louder and they're praying to their God and they're doing all these things. And Baal worship, if God wasn't listening, Baal wasn't listening, then you should cut yourself. So they begin to cut themselves with swords and knives, and blood is flowing, and they're dancing, they're singing, they're chanting, and they're crying out, and nothing is happening. It gets to be late in the day, and finally Elijah calls time. I say, okay, listen, y'all have had enough time. It's my turn. So Elijah takes the bull for the sacrifice to our God. He places it on an altar that's built of 12 stones to represent the tribes of Israel. Places that bull on top. Has the bull doused with water 3 times. Giant amounts of water put all over this. Just water is just flowing down all over this. It's soaking wet. And Elijah steps back and prays to our God. And it was a prayer that went something like this. Now, God, you've seen what's going on here. I'm the last prophet standing. I'm the last one that really believes in you. And today, God, show yourself strong. And in just a flash of like lightning, boom, the lightning comes down from heaven and consumes the sacrifice, licks up all the water. As a matter of fact, it explodes all the rocks and takes them away. There's nothing left but dust. Wow, it was an impressive display of power, of God's presence. So much so that Elijah said, all right, now here we go. Since I won, you gather up all 450 of those guys, take them down to this valley, and do away with all of them. And they did. And the people started shouting, we're going to serve Elijah's God. We believe in that God. We're in. We like this God better than the Baal God, so we're all in on this thing. So Elijah has this major victory, right? Feels pretty good. And so, by the way, it hadn't rained in that land for a long time. And finally, God was going to relent and send rain again to that territory because people had turned their hearts back to him. Elijah says to the king Ahab, says, get in your chariot and take off back to the house because it's getting ready to rain really hard. And Scripture tells us that Elijah was filled with the Spirit of God after this great victory, that he tucks his tunic in his belt. I used to wear these long tunic things. And he runs ahead of the chariot all the way back to where King Ahab lives, back to that region. Now, Jezebel, who's in charge of the prophets of Baal, gets word about what happened. Do you reckon she's happy? Man, is there anything worse than a scorned woman? Is there? I mean, there ain't. It's a scary thing, man. And Jezebel gets mad. I mean, she's off the chain mad. She sends word to this prophet Elijah, and she says, here's the deal. I heard what you did to my prophets, and I'm going to tell you, by this time tomorrow, I'm going to do the same thing to you. Now, Elijah, this man of God, is afraid of this woman of Baal. And he heads for the hills. He runs off, trying to hide from her. And he runs so far, he eventually, the scriptures tells us, he sits under a broom tree, whatever a broom tree is, some little scrawny tree in the Middle East. And he says to God, just let me die. Elijah bonks. He hits the wall. You ever been there? You've done something great for God. You've done the best you can. You worked as hard as you can. You've served as well as you can. And you just bonk. Well, Elijah's here. He hits the wall. He's had this amazing victory. He's afraid of Jezebel. Fear overwhelms him. He runs his heart out, winds up under a broom tree, and just says to God, just let me die. And he falls asleep. An angel comes and wakes Elijah up, says, listen, you need to wake up. You need to eat something. You need your peanut butter jelly right here. So Elijah wakes up and eats something, gets some water. The angel provides his provision. He falls back asleep. The angel comes and wakes him up again, says, listen, the journey's too much for you. You got to eat. You got to drink. And he gets more fuel. He gets ready for the next part of his race. And then he's sent on the next part of his journey. The scripture teaches us that he runs for 40 days. He runs for 40 days to a different part of that region. And he has another encounter with God, which I won't go into right now. But the point I need you to hear is this, is that you're going to hit a wall sometimes in your life. At Elijah's wall, who met him there at the wall? God met him through provision, through rest, through an angel. And some of you, listen to me, you're at a place in your life where you need to rest. You need to walk for just a bit. You need to take in some fuel. You need to prepare for the next run. I don't know what has you fearful right now, or has you stuck, or has you at that moment where you feel like, I don't have anything left. There's nothing left. You might be there today. It's predictable. The wall is part of your journey. It's not, God does not abandon you at the wall. He meets you at the wall, and he brings you through the wall, just like he did Elijah. He provided provision for Elijah at that wall through an angel who came and fed him, who woke him up, who encouraged him, who gave him the strength for the rest of the journey. Some of you need strength today for the rest of your journey. You're going to find it at the wall with God. For some of you, you don't need to press harder right now. For some of you, you need to take a long nap. You need to rest. And listen to you, some of you dream teamers, we love you so much. We're so grateful for all the work you do here. But for some of you dream teamers, it might be time for a little break. Go to your team leader and say, man, I just need a break. I just need to be refueled. I need to regain some strength. It's okay to take a break every now and then. Let's work with you on that to get you through your wall. If you're hitting a wall, let's talk about it. It's normal. It's predictable to hit a wall. And I don't want you to think that God has abandoned you there. He's going to bring you through your wall. Why? Because he's got more for you to do. He's not finished with you, even though you hit the wall. Here's some things you might hear at the wall, or you might say to yourself at the wall. Here's how you know you're at the wall. These are things you might say. I am bewildered. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what God is doing right now. You might say that to yourself, or you might have a friend that's saying this to you. I don't know. I don't know where God went. I don't know what's going on. And then you would say to yourself, yeah, this is a mystery. I don't know all that God is doing. These are things you're saying to yourself, or you might hear a friend say. And then you might this might be something that wells up. I'm very sad right now. Just sad. This just hurts. It's hard. And you're at the wall. And the last one. Oh God, why have you forsaken me? Where did you go? I mean, I was doing all these good things for you, and I'm doing the best I can, and I challenged this other system, this prophets of Baal, and I've done all this, and now I'm exhausted, and I got nothing left, and God, where'd you go? Why have you forsaken me? Where have you heard those words before? My God, why have you forsaken me? Who said that? Jesus said that where? On a cross. You reckon that was a wall? You reckon that was a wall? I bet it was. Jesus was at the wall too. So this is not something that's unpredictable. It's not something that people of Jesus haven't hit all time, that followers of God haven't hit at all time. But I have great news for you. God brings us through the wall. Isaiah 40, 28 to 31 says this. This is really important. God does not grow faint, nor does he grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, those who have bonked, He increases strength. They shall mount up on wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and they shall not faint. God has not forgotten you at your wall. He won't leave you there if you'll cooperate. If you'll walk when you need to walk. If you'll take in the fuel you need to take in. You see, there are gifts on the other side of the wall. The shift at the wall leads to gifts that you need for the journey ahead. And here's some of the gifts on the other side of the wall. These are what you get as you get through the wall. You learn how to run the race better. You shift to working inside. And you get this. This is going to sound weird, but you get a greater level of brokenness. The people that have been used in the mightiest ways by God have also hit the walls where they've been broken. They've hit a space where they've been broken, where they've hit their limits. They've done all they can do, and yet they're at a wall. You're going to hit a space like that, friends. At some point in your life, you're going to hit a wall. You will have done all you can do. The wall is not where you give up. The wall is where you press into the heart of God. You trust God to bring you through the wall. And you have a greater level of brokenness. A man named Jacob. Jacob is also known as Israel. He had a wall in his life where he wrestled with God himself. And he said, God, if you don't meet me here, if you don't bless me here, then I'm not letting you go. And some of you are at that wall where you're just asking God, just bless me, take care of me. But Jacob, the rest of his life, Israel, he became Israel. He walked with a limp the rest of his life. Now listen to me. When I'm selecting leaders to do great work here in the church, people that are going to help us the most, I actually look for people that walk with a limp. If they're totally self-confident, if they've never hit a wall, if they've never bonked, then I don't really trust them yet. Because I don't know what they're going to do when they hit their wall, because the wall is coming. But if you walk with a limp, I'm paying really close attention to you. Because then I know that you come to a place where you trust Him and not yourself. You see, the gift of the shift at the wall is you're more broken than you were before. You walk with a limp and you trust Him more than you trust yourself, and that's important. You hit a greater appreciation for holy unknowing. It's okay not to know everything about God. The people I trust the least when it comes to Scripture and the Bible are the ones who are the most confident that they've got God all figured out and got Him in a corner. Those people I don't trust, because that's not the God I see in Scripture. God is mysterious, and God does what He wants to do when He wants to do it in ways that I don't understand. He brings us to harder places than I would ever go myself, but He's training us for a bigger life. Friends, listen to me. If somebody tells you they've got God all figured out, you need to listen to somebody else, because that's impossible. If you could figure God out, that's too small a God, isn't it? If you could control God, would you really want that to be your God? That would be like a prophet that would be like Baal. These little Baal gods that they served at the time of Elijah were gods they thought they could control with sacrifices and things. But I got to tell you, you can't control our God. He's too big to be controlled or to be placed in a bottle. He's not a genie in a bottle. He's a God who's outside of us. Another gift of the shift at the wall is a deeper ability to wait on God. You become more content to wait on His timing, not just to plow through on your own timing. This is important. If you're going to follow God, this is a gift of the shift at the wall, a deeper ability to wait on God. And then this last one, a greater detachment. Now here's what this means, a greater detachment. You're not just focused on the outcomes you get in this life. You become focused on what God wants to do in you, for you, and through you to take you to a different space than you've ever imagined possible. It's not just what you can do on your own power. It is what He can do in you, for you, and through you. But that means you can't hang on too tight to this world, to these moments. This is not all there is. There's a greater life outside of this one. There's more than what you see here. These are gifts of the shift at the wall. You see, the wall is a gift because of the shift in your spiritual life. The wall is a gift because of the shift in your spiritual life. It's a gift. Don't grow weary in well-doing. Don't stop. Don't give up. The wall is to bring you through, to allow God to teach you and to train you and to bring you to the place He wants you to be. On the other side of the wall, You'll run like you've never ran before. You'll be able to finish longer races than you've ever finished before. You will be able to trust God more than you've ever trusted Him before. All these gifts come from the shift at the wall. And that's what God might be doing in your life right now. So don't curse the wall. Just hang out at the wall and let God bring you through the wall. Let Him bring you through. Rest, trust, and know that better things are on the other side of the wall. Let's pray together.